welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which I find out the best kind of monogamy is collective monogamy. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and joining me today, live from the great wild north somewhere in human form.
Hello.
Hello.
How is everyone?
Yes, for those of you that are not aware, in human form, I'll just call him Formy, because I like that.
That's my nickname now.
Yep, I'm officially the nickname maker here. Formy makes documentaries on crime and psychology and social, I don't know, up and down all over the place. He's all over the place, but it's mostly about people and how people interact with each other or themselves. So go check out his channel, links in the description, as well as his Twitter account if you want to follow him there. How are you doing today, Formy?
I'm doing good. And also, my co-guest, Tofu, my dog, is here too, like last time.
Uh-oh, Tofu.
But he's not biting me this time, so we're good.
Well, that's good. All right. Maybe, hopefully Tofu and Dogcat Fox will get along with each other, won't you? Wowie, wow, wow. Okay. As long as you guys get along together, that's fine. All right. So today, everyone, special day. So as you all know, I am a brilliant economist. No, I'm not. I'm an English major. I rarely ever approach subjects involving topics that I find go beyond my kin, so to speak. And so I was a little nervous when I saw this one. I was like, I don't really want to do it. And then just sort of on a lark, I said, hey, Formy, do you know about economics? And what did you tell me?
I said, not academically, but I almost became a stockbroker.
Yeah. So in that regard, you have far more credentials on this subject than I do. And therefore, this will hopefully be a good pairing, because our subject today is, what does love have to do with communism? Or what's love got to do with communism? Because we're going for a Tina Turner thing there. Now, by the title, it could either be communism has love, or questioning if there is any love in communism. I don't know, but I guess we'll find out real quick. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk, for the dancing Dogcat Fox. You guys can't see it on the screen because StreamYard doesn't show the sticker, but the super sticker's there for those of you watching the live chat. And dancing Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox. And before we get into it, a few hellos to all of you here who've joined us today. Zalbla, hello. Matt Barnes, hello. Samanium Nation, hello. The Useless Cook, hello. Mike R, hello. Check Your Logic, hello. Debate Fly, hello. Jamie Melquist, hello. Leo Prime 75, hello. Funtime Bats, hello. Scanner Daftly, hello. Non-Vitae Rex, hello. Zeke Weiss, hello. Mike R, hello. Aspianti, hello. Megan Ring, hello. Corey Suzuki, hello. Mike Savage, Blarg, the Rusted Monkey, hello. Bruno Mataro, Montiero, hello. I usually get that right. The Gay Rascal, hello. The Original Shroom, hello. Ossan, hello. Lexi Mans is here. I guess we can start. Keenan, hello. Brad Young, hello. Brutus Lupus Rex, hello. Ryan R, hello. Spyro Girl, hello. And I think, and then chat jumped. If I missed anybody, I do apologize. Robert Pincus and Corey AB, hello. All right, guys. So today's bingo card, links are in the description, is bingo card C. C is in communism, I guess. So per usual, I'll start off with a few seconds for sound test, and then we will begin. Let me know if you can hear this. Are you ready for me?
Yes.
All right. Take a sip, and let's go.
Okay, so let's talk about communism.
Oh boy, let's talk about communism. You guys hear all that?
Excellent.
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 Let me know.
Mr. Burns.
Smithers, release the hounds. Sounds good, says Megan Ring. Ryan R is calling a single bingo out of this. All right. I guess we'll find out. Maybe one, maybe none. Let's see. All right.
I love that we're talking about communism as I sip from my McDonald's coffee.
Well, you can't outrun capitalism, but maybe we'll find out. Maybe we'll find out how to by our speaker today. I don't even know who he is, but let's find out.
Now, many, if not most of you, probably feel that you know enough about communism already.
Uh-huh.
You're likely to think of craven big government that crushes human freedom and Karl Marx as the horrible villain who hatched the whole plan.
Actually, I think about millions of people dying in starvation.
I honestly, when I think of Karl Marx, I don't think of some like maniacal evil person.
No, I think
It's crazy that people think of that.
I just think about, the glasses and the mustache and the big nose. That's all.
Yeah, it's some guy that lived in his friend's basement the majority of his life, I think.
It's usually the hair, and it's like there's no party like the Communist Party. All right, so yeah, we usually think of Karl Marx and oppressive governments and things like that. You're right. I guess in some way, shape, or form. I think of Stalin mostly, but okay.
In fact, there's a good chance that you feel that you know enough about Karl Marx already, too.
I mean, I don't need to know enough. See, Karl Marx as a person is irrelevant to me. The idea outlives the individual. So just the notions and the results of communism kind of stand out more than the man's personal biography. I mean,
yeah, I agree. I think anybody that does know anything like a very loose idea of Karl Marx, they tend to just think of it, communism, rather than actually he's a really interesting guy in my opinion. But
oh, sure. I mean, he might live an interesting life, but when it comes to communism as a concept, I like I say, I rarely think about the specifics because concepts far outpace their creators almost immediately.
Oh yeah.
So
no, I mean the modern idea of communism almost has like no resemblance to what he came up with.
Right.
No other author generates such strong feelings among so many people.
I would argue God does. Have you seen the Bible? Anyway.
Who've never read his books.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some interesting and important reasons why that's the case, but they would require a talk all their own.
Okay.
For now, suffice it to say that by comparison to what Marx wrote about social and economic affairs, about exploitation in everyday life,
yes,
his attention to the government was actually minor and fleeting.
Is that so? I don't know. I mean, I don't see how you avoid having to deal with governmental involvement when you're talking about economies. But then I don't know exactly what Marx was originally saying. So
that's unfortunately like the dilemma is that whenever somebody says, let's have a conversation about economics, you immediately have to assume in the modern world that there's politics involved.
Is that ever avoidable?
That's how it goes. I think in the certain sense, like if you were to be in a small group of people that are living in like a token economy within a country or something. So like economy is a broad, obviously a definition of a system of monetization or something of that nature.
Right.
So, but whenever we're talking about nation states or something like that, yeah, I think it's inseparable.
Instead, Marx was transfixed by a peculiar German concept and word, the Gemeinwesen. The Gemeinwesen, a word meant to...
Whoa. Okay. Just so you guys know, I didn't do any editing of the videos. So there's little, like, if you see these little blips that are going on now, like they almost tried to transition fade to something else. And then I think he's showing slides and they just screwed up displaying it onto the video. So just as a note, that threw me off for a second.
Grasp the essence of the human community, how the human community is, how it could be, how it should be.
Yeah, there's that word should. It's a very loaded word when you're talking about things like this.
Now, Marx's interest in the community was closely connected to his interest in communism. After all, both community and communism share a similar root back to the Gemeinwesen. For Marx, communism meant a real movement to overturn the world of exchange relations. Okay, so what are exchange relations?
The relations between exchanges. Sorry, I know, I'm being too simplistic.
By exchange relations, we mean to refer to the ways that we interact with other people in terms of what we can get from them in exchange for something else. So, for example, I'll give you some labor in exchange for a wage.
Mhm.
Or I'll give you some money in the marketplace in exchange for a commodity. Or you will give me some rent money in exchange for a place to sleep in an apartment building that I own.
Uh-huh.
Now, our societies from top to bottom are organized in various ways by exchange relations. Our social relations are exchange relations, and Marx felt that was not the healthiest, that was not the best Gemeinwesen.
Okay.
See, this is the interesting aspect of Marx, and I'm sure somebody is or one of many interesting aspects, I should say. But like for me, I always question, like, and I'm sure this has been answered by somebody, but why does he think this? Like, why was he so critical of capitalism? And I am as well. But I don't want to dismantle the entire system personally. I'm really curious as to why he was very against it.
You got to assume that there was some personal fuel going on there. That, you know, something.
I think so.
I mean, there has to be. I mean, where else do ideas come from? If he's going to oppose it so vehemently, then there must have been something that happened in his life, some interaction, some system that he ran up against that soured the very notion to him.
Yeah. I
yeah.
think of Ayn Rand, ironically, which is exact opposite, where she, I believe, was very familiar with like the technocracy and like, you know, I believe it was like Soviet Russia, if I'm not mistaken. So she hated government control, and as a reaction, you know, she became very laissez-faire and impacted the world through her laissez-faire philosophies.
Yeah, and her disciples like Greenspan and so on. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Marx dreamt of a future where we could one day declare, from each according to their ability, to each according to their needs.
Is that at all a sane philosophy? You know, because that's sort of like the word equity keeps being thrown around a lot lately, which has been, you know, transmogrified into being equality of outcome rather than equality of opportunity. And I keep, you know, always come back to Harrison Bergeron when you think about that in the most extreme sense, and that is science fiction to a degree, obviously, but it's also representative of that philosophy. And I don't know that I've ever had anybody convince me that it's a healthy one. But
I'm not familiar with that.
With what?
With the philosophy that you're mentioning?
Oh, well, I mean, the to each according to their needs, that whole phrase.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, is it? Do you know the story of Harrison Bergeron?
I don't.
So I think somebody's gonna punch me if I get this wrong. I believe it was a Kurt Vonnegut short story.
Oh, okay.
I think, or it was Philip K. Dick, one of the two. Anyway, so this was a story that told about a world in which everyone in the world had been physically normalized. No one was stronger than anyone else, because if you were weaker, you had machines on you that made you stronger. No one was smarter than anyone else, so if you were smarter than most people, you had inhibitors on you that kept you dumb. So everybody was exactly the same, physically, mentally, the whole 9 yards, in order to have this utopian equality ideal. And so no one went anywhere that anyone else couldn't go, and so on. And so it was the most extreme idea of the whole, you know, everybody's absolutely equal, and there are no superiors, there are no inferiors. And obviously, you know, the author was tilted towards one end and the other, but just thinking about it, it's an absolute hellscape. You know, there's no opportunity to excel in something over anybody else. Like, no one was a better artist than anyone else, and on and on. So that's sort of the root of what I think of when somebody talks about the whole each according to their needs and so on.
Right.
I might be.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, it's fine. I was babbling. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, this is interesting to me because I don't know much about communism, admittedly, because I was never interested in that form of economy. Or actually, it's not a form of economy. I don't believe it wasn't supposed to be, if I'm not mistaken. But it ended up, or no, it is supposed to be a form of economics.
Yes.
However, it didn't mean to be a governmental system, I believe.
Right, but the way that it was produced, when you talk about community, you can't avoid then the politics of people living within a space together.
Right, right.
And so and again, I am a layman here, guys. Just so you know, if I'm off base on anything, by all means, correct me in the comments, either below if you're listening to this in the future, or when we get to question time later. But communism always was pitched, in my sort of 30,000 foot view, as a total solution for all things. How to live amongst one another, how to socialize, how to do business, how to live, how to run a state, on and on and on. And whenever anybody tries, and obviously I have the benefit of history and hindsight, when everybody tries to pitch to me a final solution for all things, get a little twitchy.
Isn't that what the Nazis had called the Holocaust?
Mm-hmm. That was my
They
joke.
called it the final solution.
Yeah. All right.
Oh
So
gosh, I shouldn't have said the N-word because
oh, who knows?
YouTube.
I think I'll survive.
Into society where we would expect from other people only what was in line with their abilities, and where we would want to make sure that their needs were met as a first priority.
But if there's no, necessity is the mother of invention. I think no great thing can occur without some modicum of suffering, if that makes any sense. So if you actually did insulate everyone from every possible hardship, regardless of their ability or merit or anything else, again, I don't know that that's a world that would be that much fun to live in. So I'm getting very philosophical on this one.
Okay. But aren't there already some places in our existing society where we already do that? Where we only expect from other people what's in line with their abilities and ultimately their desires, and where we want to make sure that their needs are met as a first priority?
Are we going to talk about what, like Medicare or police or firefighters? Usually firefighters and roads and things come up in that kind of conversation. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people, scribbles, and in human form. Hello, Kyle.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
Indeed, there are places like that in our society. Many examples we could discuss, but let me just share with you one. My relationship with my two children.
Okay. Your relationship with your children as a father and communism? Okay.
See, I'm never going to say to my sons, I'm not going to feed you if you don't pay me.
I have a feeling this is going to be a very inadequate comparison.
So wait, he's saying that a relationship we have between our families should be one that's similar to government. Is that what the comparison is?
That seems to be what he is implying. Let's see how far he wants to go, because you want to talk about nanny state.
I'm never going to say to my kindergartner that if he doesn't do some labor in the house, he's going to have to sleep outside on the street. And that's because exchange has no business there.
Whoa. That is not true.
In some families, it does.
Well, not even in that, but just like, I mean, okay. Sure, if you have a family that is completely chaotic and there's no sense of responsibility or accountability, sure, I suppose. But in a healthy family structure, there is an expectation. There is an exchange. There's an exchange of knowledge. There's an exchange of behavior. There's an exchange of emotion. But these things are not... I don't want to think of the state as my father. Right. Does that make sense? Or that I am the child of the state.
Yeah, it's not necessarily equitable in a family either. Someone's got the there are dynamics between relatives.
Let's see. Thank you, Point Curation. Pair of great channels. Great work, both of you. Thank you, Point.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, let's go on with the family analogy.
And we can find similar little islands of communism, if you want to call them that.
No. You are calling them that. I didn't call it anything. I'm the audience. You're doing this. Take responsibility for your own actions here.
Other love relations with family, with friends, with anyone with whom you're happily connected for other reasons than money. So, for example, a friend calls me up and says,
Hey, wait. Sorry, I keep doing this, but there are different like phrases and catchwords and everything else that come to mind as he's talking about this. And there's, I mean, it's not originating from there, but the movie V for Vendetta, you know, people should not be afraid of their governments. Government should be afraid of their people. There should always be some measure of discord between the people and the state, because complacency doesn't lead to anything but absolute chaos when it comes to those things. That's why we have kind of an adversarial system of government, that we don't trust the government 100%, that we switch people out from time to time, that we vote, that we debate, and so on. So the idea that I'm going to love the government like I would a family member, no. Thank you, Gay Rascal. Family is the only place where socialism works. In the broad strokes, perhaps. I mean, obviously, he's not wrong that there are small pockets of socialist thinking in our society. As I said before, firefighters, the fire department. You know, doesn't matter whose house it is. You have an expectation that the fire department is going to come to protect your house because it is a communal good. And obviously, there are stories of elsewise having happened in the past. But so, yeah, so little bits and pieces amongst sort of like common societal agreement exist, but not as an all-encompassing thing. There's a limit. I don't have the academics to put it out right now because I'm not a philosopher or anything. But anyway, thank you, Pecoraro Driving 8 Man. There are 4 lights. This guy thinks there's 5. I don't know yet. He's creeping me out a little bit, but we'll get there. And thank you, Brittany Holland. Keep on scribbling, Scribe. Just started following you too, Inhuman.
Oh, thank you so much.
There you go. You got a new follower. All right. Sorry to keep bumping into this, but like I say, guy makes me a little nervous.
Richard, I need you. I need your time and attention. I'm going through a divorce. I just lost my job. And I say, you've got my time and attention, friend. It's yours. But it's going to cost you $15 an hour. You see, the second I charge a fee for friendship, the friendship is nullified because exchange has no business in that relationship. A different example.
What? Again,
I don't believe that to be true.
I don't believe that to be true either. There's an exchange. There's an exchange of loyalty. There's an exchange of trust to begin with. I mean, why should that guy trust you of all people with talking about those personal things in his life if he hasn't already formed a bond with you and a mutual exchange of trust? That's nonsense. Now you could be very mercenary, and even in the absence of, financial gain, see establishing trust with people as a commodity in and of itself. You could be that sort of sociopathic, I suppose, and just look at people as tools, and then you sort of play along for the sake of keeping somebody. And a lot of people work, business contacts and things like that, right? Somebody's only useful to you until they don't have the job they have anymore, that kind of thing. It's pragmatic. It's not necessarily nice, but hey, that's business. But even in friendships, there's an exchange. Like my best friend before the 2016 election, we were best friends for 10 years. And then I decided I was not going to vote in the presidential election, as in I wasn't going to vote for anybody. And she decided to, I was like, I don't like either candidate. I didn't like Hillary. I didn't like Trump. They were both bad in my mind for different reasons. And I just didn't feel like endorsing either. And I stated this on Facebook, the land that I shall rarely ever visit again. And my best friend of 10 years, who was, I guess, very idealistic, I suppose, but this had never become an issue in our friendship. She decided to interpret that as, since I wasn't voting for Hillary, I was supporting Trump, and therefore I was persona non grata, and she ended our friendship within a day.
Oh, come on. That's just
And I'm not even
That's
kidding. I
really
wish I was. I wish
accurate.
I was making it up. I know it sounds over dramatic, but that's literally what it was. She told me I didn't care about her well-being because Trump was going to end healthcare and all the other sort of like things that people thought Trump was going to do, sending anti-immigration squads through all the neighborhoods and that kind of stuff. Anyway, so because I was de facto supporting Trump, therefore I didn't care about her life or her friends' lives or her well-being. And 10 years of friendship and I was just completely sideswiped. I was like, what? And I tried to explain to her, I am endorsing Hillary just as much as I am Trump in taking this action, if you want to look at it that way. And it didn't matter. And once that line is broken, once that exchange is ended, something is lost. So there is an exchange in just friendship in the absence of commodity or currency, I should say. Thank you, Navite Rex. This guy doesn't understand how average human relationships work. Either he understands how they work to a point, or this is just his understanding. That could be
Yeah, I
it
mean, I
too.
think he is talking about his personal experience. So it's like anecdotal evidence in his family experience, where
It's kinda
some people
sad.
have awful experiences with their families.
Sure.
So I don't think they would be on board.
I've had people in my life where I've met their families and I've seen how they live and everything else. And some families are run like businesses where the children are treated like employees, where there's an expectation to do this, that, and the other. Some families are very loosey-goosey with the rules. Different families work different ways. But regardless, to say, like you said, that there's no exchange there because there's no money traded is like, that's nonsense. Thank you, Murat Demir. I love you in human form. Uh-oh.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
She loved you so much, she gave me $5. Imagine what'll happen if you ever do your own live stream. Wow.
Maybe one day I should have you on, actually.
There you go. Hey, I'm open. All right, let's continue with family matters here.
Imagine you and your partner place every chore or favor you do for one another on a spreadsheet to ensure an equal exchange, right? You want to make sure that everything is fair. But instead, what you've just done is placed yourselves on the fast track to resentment.
Again, I'm going to back up on you on there a little bit. Now, maybe not equal exchange so much, but expectations set out. I hate to tell you this. There are some relationships out there that thrive on that kind of discipline and structure, heavy on the discipline part, as in power exchange BDSM couples. And not necessarily just in the bedroom, but I knew a 24/7 full spectrum power exchange couple where there was a list of expectations for the husband and the wife was the dominatrix, if you want to call it that for the simplest of terms. And they were happy as peas in a pod. And
well,
so
I mean, it's not necessarily that those relationships aren't tied in with biological sex or gender. Their dynamics, those dynamics are in male heterosexual relationships as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I say,
but they express, or they're more evident in relationships where you live together.
Yes. Yeah, and so these, again, I don't know, maybe it's just I have the benefit of having met a whole lot of different people who live a whole lot of different kinds of lives and have found either joy or sorrow in some. And then if you look at someone else, the very things that brought somebody else so much pain is something that they actually appreciate. So
understandably.
So now maybe something as regimented as we're going to have spreadsheets and we will do the same thing back and forth. Maybe, but at the same time, it's like Rule 34. If you can think it, it probably exists somewhere, and somebody's probably enjoying it. So, again, I know I keep cutting in on this guy, but he's making some very broad assurances of fact, which I already know I can say do not necessarily apply to reality.
Because exchange doesn't belong there either. Okay? So,
but there's an exchange of responsibility there, isn't there? I mean, if you're divvying up the responsibilities 50-50, that in and of itself is an exchange. Right? So no one person is doing more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, am I off base there? He was saying there's no exchange. Yeah, there's an exchange. There's an agreement. There's an exchange.
I think his idea of exchange doesn't involve social currency.
Right. Yeah, if you want to put it that way. Yeah. So yeah, he's talking about like actual like money.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if he understands the concept of social currency, or he is just leaving it out for his argument's sake, which is one thing that he hasn't been clear about.
Yeah, if he's got something else. And you know what, guys, I've been neglecting the bingo card. I apologize. Let's go over the bingo card real quick. Let's see. Remember, this is card C. C is in communism. Marginalize marginalization. He hasn't said the words or brought up the concepts quite yet. Collectivize his own demographic. Well, collectivism is kind of all part of this, but his own demographic, not yet. Leaves out vital context. I'm getting ready to circle that one just because I'm not sure he's well explained his whole exchange thing. Feminism, no. Microaggressions, unconscious bias, no. Anecdote that probably never happened. He hasn't given us a direct anecdote yet. Everything's been sort of a hypothetical. So I guess we'll see. Contradicts own point or argument. He's already kind of getting, actually, you know what? I'm going to circle that one right now, because if he comes across and says, if he clarifies his whole exchange thing and it makes some kind of sense, then maybe, but him saying that there is no exchange between people that doesn't involve money, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm circling contradicts own point or argument. So free space and contradicts own point or argument. Diversity and inclusion. He hasn't said the words yet. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. I haven't heard anything oddball yet. Plays victim, hasn't talked about himself. Word salad, mind reading assumes motives. If we haven't already, we'll get there by the end of it, I'm pretty sure. Benevolent condescension, probably. I think communism kind of is benevolent condescension. A list, has he listed off things? I think he did, but somebody in the chat might have to remind me. Patriarchy.
No, I think he did. I think he was listing off like ways that you can be in a family or something like that, or things that aren't in family.
Yeah. Okay. So list, got that one. Patriarchy. Not. I mean, if you want to look at the state as your father or parent figure, maybe.
I think that counts, because he's probably assuming that the idea of family is very almost conservative in a sense.
Yeah. Okay. I'll circle patriarchy on that one. It's not the usual way I go about it, but in this case, it makes sense.
From my point of view,
yeah.
I mean, he's not like the patriarchy.
Right. But, yeah. He's not talking about it in opposition to males or as promoting feminism, but he is promoting what effectively comes down to a governmental patriarchy. Wage gap. Well, I mean, he's talking about economies, so there's always going to be. I mean, wage gap usually refers to like you're coming up with the wage gap between men and women, or between racial demographics or something. I mean, we could. I'll wait until the end. I mean, it gets more specific, maybe. And and as you guys know, a lot of these squares can be circled in aggregate sense by the time we get to the end of the presentation. Systemic institutional. I don't think I can avoid circling that one just on the basis of what he's talking about. Aggregate or not right now. Privilege, not directly yet. Childhood or family anecdote. Yep, he talked about his kids. So circling that one. Self-vilification or wretchedness. New, at no point in here as so far as he diminished himself. Equity. I don't think he said the word. Did he?
I don't believe so.
No, the concept is always there, as in like equality of outcome, but he hasn't. I said the word, he hasn't yet. And we'll see where we are at the end of this. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Is TEDx guy saying a lasting marriage is about trying to be identical, not negotiation, compromise, or filling in for each other's weaknesses? I don't know. That's the thing. It's like, you know, was he decrying the notion of a marriage splitting everything up evenly? Was that it? He was describing it, but I wasn't quite sure if that was like an ideal or some kind of nightmare scenario. I think he was saying you wouldn't do that.
I didn't hear him mention that.
Oh, he talked about, you know, with your partner, if you have spreadsheets, divvying up all the responsibilities in the house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was saying you wouldn't do that. Like, well, some people do. It really depends. So
Depends on how organized you are.
yeah, or how anal retentive you are. Let's see, we're almost done here. Let's see, weightless example. I mean, honestly, most of his descriptions of family dynamics as this isn't how an exchange works are weightless examples, because that's not true. Even in describing these things, he says these wouldn't be exchanges. He's describing exchanges, so they don't add to his argument. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. He hasn't. I haven't heard a non sequitur yet of anything, so we'll wait and see. And lastly, white supremacy.
Also, let me if you don't mind.
Yeah.
One thing this guy is looking at is so he's bringing up family in the sense that there's no exchange.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go ahead and use the P word here. Is that he must have been in a very privileged family where he didn't have to go out and have to work and then give the money to the family, which happens very often in poverty. And he's an older white man. Let's just put that out there. There are other demdemographics that the entire family works because they can't afford to live otherwise.
All right, I'm gonna wait and see if he ever uses the word, because a lot of the squares on the card, I wait to see if there's like explicitly they say the term or bring up the concept or something. And privilege is one of those things where it's like I always kind of wait till after, well, unless they say it, of course. And with anything else, so like white supremacy, sometimes they never talk about white supremacy, but they imply, the dynamics and everything else without saying it. And then by the end of the presentation, go like, yeah, they were talking about white supremacy. So that's a good, keep that argument in mind by the time we get to the end of this, and we'll debate that one. But anyway, so guys, so far on the card, I have contradicts, own point or argument, free space, a list, patriarchy, systemic institutional, childhood or family anecdote, and weightless example. Let's continue.
What we're looking for are different ways of relating to other people, and our love relation, our aspiration to love, reveals in all of us a deep yearning for something greater than exchange relations. So let me put it to you this way, almost as a kind of a challenge.
How is love not an exchange relationship? Ever hear the phrase unrequited love? Because in order for two people to be in love, they each have to give love and affection, an exchange. I mean, hell, even just the act of coupling involves an exchange. What? Am I missing something here? This guy's, from the abstract description of this world this man lives in, his growing up and his personal relationships must be just, I don't know, made of concrete or something. I'm going to back up a little because I cut him off, but I'm just flummoxed.
Either I'm sorry, now I cut him off. Either he thinks they're set in stone, or he's very entitled.
So let me put it to you this way, almost as a kind of a challenge. Almost as a kind of a challenge to the most capitalist person listening to this talk right now, to the most capitalist person out there. I wager.
Wait, isn't wagering a form of... Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I cut him off. I was trying to be a smart ass there. Hold on. Wagering implies chance and risk, and that'd be more capitalist than it would be communist, wouldn't it? But you're going to... I know I'm being a smart ass. Okay, I'll stop.
To this talk right now, to the most capitalist person out there, I wager that the best things under capitalism, indeed, the best things in your lives are the least capitalist things.
The best things in my life are the least capitalist things.
What are the best things in your life, Scribe?
Well, let's see. To hear the cries of my enemies, see their women driven, see them driven before me, and hear the lamentations of their women. What, Conan? What is best in life? And I know I misquoted that because I screwed it up. Either way, the best things in my life. I guess my Well, obviously, well, okay, maybe not obviously, because it isn't for everybody. My relationship with my family. I have a very healthy and positive relationship with my parents, despite a lot of chaos and bad stuff that happened in my youth. That's all been settled over time and come to an accord, and it's all just basically, forgive and forget kind of thing. I have an excellent relationship with my sister, which I know a lot of people cannot necessarily say about their own siblings. I have a great appreciation for my personal independence. Yeah, I mean, I could go on. There's a whole bunch of things. Like, I mean, if we're going to go for Thanksgiving kind of thing, we can hold hands and say amen. But yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, those are the things I like best in life. Do they have to deal with capitalism specifically? No. But they're also not necessarily communistic, unless you're talking about just family dynamics is communism. So I guess that's my answer.
That's interesting. Actually, I see a lot of parallels between your life and mine. In that sense, I also have a very good relationship with my older sister and my parents as well, even though things were chaotic or in early years. So that's interesting. Yeah,
I have so many other people I've known, and I hear about their oftentimes very legitimate grievances with their family members, whatever else. And I count myself as very, very thankful and lucky that in the overall, for as small and as, because I don't have a very large extended family, or at least I didn't grow up with one. And so that we, were so cloistered with one another for so long and had so many issues growing up that we ended up now being, I mean, as far as I can tell, we're all
communist.
Shush you. Thank you, the gay rascal. Community, identity, stability. Yes. Freedom forever. Oh, wait, no, that's not how this works. Okay, so anyway, the things in my life are not necessarily capitalistic. Well, since I don't consider my relationship with my parents to be one where I am gaining something over them, I suppose you are right, I guess. Or see them as a commodity or something. Yeah, I guess since I'm not a machine, the best things in my life are not capitalistic in that way. But of course, it depends on who you are and how you view people or objects or status or power. So what do you have to say about it, oh wise one?
Now, I invite you to think about that, because I think that you're going to agree.
Uh-oh.
Okay, but fine.
Okay, wait. Well, just having said that, mind reading assumes motive, circling that on the bingo card. Because he already knows what I'm going to think. All right, so let's move back a little bit and go forward.
Because I think that you're going to agree. Okay, but fine. Why not just leave love relations to be experienced in the private spaces of family and friends? I mean, do we really need to take that whole next step and talk about a whole new social order?
What? You want to expand my sense of love and affection for my family and friends outward to the state? Because that's, where are you going, wise one?
Actually, I think that we do.
Uh-huh.
And there again, there are many examples or reasons we could look at.
Why don't you give us some? Because so far you haven't given us much to stand on.
But let's just take the most pressing example of our time.
Yes.
Okay, let's take the example of COVID-19, of this experience with the global pandemic. So variously, all around the world, millions upon millions of people have been left alone or evicted, facing new forms of financial and food insecurity, cut off from the relationships that give their lives meaning.
And communism would have saved us from this? Where did this all start? And how's it going in Russia? Well, I mean, Russia's not technically communist anymore, but Putin wants it to be, so who knows?
Left without the jobs that they used to depend on. And then there are homes. All around the world, there are homes. And we like to think of every home as a haven of love.
I suppose if you're talking about home as a concept and not just where I live kind of thing. What are you trying to sell me on, dude? Because it sounds like snake oil.
But unfortunately, that isn't the case, because many homes are spaces of abuse. And in those homes, children and adults can't wait to go to school, can't wait to go to work, to gain temporary refuge from the abuse of their home life.
That would be happening whether there was a pandemic on or not. So how would communism help cure abuse in the home? I mean, if the family dynamic is so fractured that there's abuse in the home, the only way that changes is through outside influence. So social services or what? What? Am I the only one who's lost here?
I think what he is implying here, which he hasn't explained very well, is that through capitalism, the system and the environment is set up so that these families do have these dysfunctions.
Okay.
However, he's also implying that in communism, everything would be the ideal utopian world where the state of the nature of things would be just more utopian, I guess. So you wouldn't have to deal with the fallout that comes with capitalism, which he hasn't made a good argument for. And I do agree with him in the sense that capitalism is a system that really does kind of ruin your psyche, but as does communism.
Yeah, I mean, sure. If no one ever had to worry about an income, if no one had ever had to worry about having a roof over their head, you'd reduce, domestic violence or a whole bunch of things, et cetera, because all the ills that come about are from, scarcity and necessity and want and so on. And if you eliminated want, then so many things would be cured. The problem is human beings always want. They're never going to stop wanting. It's that's why we have laws. We have a sort of an ongoing understanding of the frailties of human beings. Laws are confessions of human weakness. They're not. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Trunk. He's saying we should treat society like family. Yeah, and I mean, in a sort of I'd like to buy the world a Coke sense, sure, but he's not talking about sort of common humanity, one man to another, so to speak. He's talking about a governmental / economic system which has nothing to do with human beings directly. It has to do with maintaining order. And people are chaotic by nature. So I don't know. Okay.
But now, with social distancing and staying at home, a terrible phenomenon. All around the world, victims quarantined with their abusers in horrific private nightmares.
And your cure for this would be?
That I'm afraid we're going to be learning about for the rest of our lives.
Okay.
We already know from study after study that people are unequally impacted by a pandemic.
People are unequally impacted by life. So, yeah. Thank you. This is Kyle. To your example earlier, wouldn't your parents raising you with the potential outcome of you taking care of them in old age be seen as an exchange? Sure. Yeah, I mean, and again, some parents are mercenary enough to look at their children as just, support systems for them in their old age or something. Or there's an expectation, and I think it's an understood expectation. They took care of you, you take care of them. Unless you're a really terrible child, which there are people in my family who are really terrible children to their parents. And I saw the results of that. And I know that I don't want to be one of them when I grow up. So, yeah, there's an exchange there. Is it monetary? Well, it might end up requiring monetary exchange in order to affect it, like paying for a nursing home or something. But are you getting anything out of it other than you're taking care of your loved one? I don't know. It's family to family. Maybe it's like that movie Greedy. If you ever saw the movie long time ago, I know I'm a fogey, where everybody in the family was just being nice to the old man because they wanted to get his money in the will. You know, oh, they were the nicest people ever, except their motivations were completely selfish. Of course, you could say that everything you do in life is selfish because it's all for self-preservation in one way, shape, or form. But hey, we're not getting that deep into it, I suppose. At least I'm not trying to. Anyway.
Wealthy countries can be first in line for the vaccine. Many of them even can stockpile the vaccine, having more vaccine than they have of population. And then within wealthy countries, we know that communities of color and impoverished communities bear disproportionate pains.
Do you mean to tell me that people with less money have it worse off than people with more money?
I want to fact check that. He says countries have been stockpiling vaccines more than their population. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true. But also, why bring up communities of color if you're talking about class? And why tie those two things together? Yeah.
Is that what he did?
Well, he brought up communities of color in the same breath, talked about impoverished communities. I'll back up.
Well, I mean, he's got a point there. They are definitely less affluent.
But just by nature of their skin color?
No, but because of the system that definitely does not serve them as well.
I'll back up a little bit.
Having more vaccine than they have of population. And then within wealthy countries, we know that communities of color and impoverished communities bear disproportionate pains. So what's the message of all of this? I mean, clearly there's more than one message. There are many messages, but one of them has to be that we've just got to find a way to attend to other people's needs on the basis of their basic humanity.
And communism will do that. Show me the country where that is the end result when communism was in practice. I'll wait. Show me where basic human understanding and relationship was the end-all be-all in Stalin's Russia. Or even now, even though it's not technically communist, in China, where a lot of the same social systems and beliefs are in practice there. You know, because obviously China lets everybody express themselves equally, you know, because it's an equality country, right? There's not
in China. I think in China, what he is describing is available. Like most people can afford, a majority of people, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, can afford what they need, and they can have what they want. However, they can't be what they want. So again, there's this loss of sense of self that is associated with communism.
And you can't be a Uyghur Muslim.
Yeah. Aside from that, I'm just talking about like general population. Aside from the genocidal aspect of things, but like in terms of like infrastructure and housing and everything, yeah, they're taken care of, but they also have to give up their sense of self in that.
Right. Yeah.
That's the common complaint, I believe.
Yeah. When you are taught from a young age that you are simply an extension of the state, you can get a whole lot of stuff done real quick on behalf of the state when the state tells you what to do. It's true. You can build lots of buildings and build lots of roads and do everything to perfection and sacrifice everything about your life because your life is the state. It's got nothing to do with what you want, so long as everybody's happy, except making everybody happy usually makes nobody happy.
Yeah.
So.
Now, inside of a love relation, you will never want money to determine whether or not your beloved gets the attention and the care that they need.
That is true. And if there's one thing, if I could wave a magic wand, it would be that no one ever again goes bankrupt over becoming ill. I don't know what the solution to that is. I don't know what the reasonable answer to that is, nationalized healthcare, anything else, because it doesn't seem to be necessarily the panacea, for lack of a better word, that I hear it is in other countries. But yeah, if there's one major thing if I could change in the world, it would be that, because I've seen people's lives ruined for no fault of their own. They just get sick, you know, cancer or heart problems or whatever. And it's not like they did anything wrong, but their entire life savings end up getting wiped out or crazy stuff. And they might have been the most honest, hardworking people in their entire life, never harmed anybody. And then, oh, there's a lump, and now your life is effectively canceled. I hate that when it happens. I've seen it happen in my own family. So yeah, on that point, you got me. You got me. I still don't believe in communism. So.
And we shouldn't want it to determine that either in society more broadly. And I think we've got to learn that lesson from this catastrophe if we want to face the next one with any hope. For example, the ongoing ecological crisis. I mean, what's the message of that crisis? That we should just keep on competitively seizing upon the finite resources of our really very small planet?
See, now, I'm just listening to this. I've done several videos now on different subjects over the last year or so, where a lot of very goofy ideas are being leveraged into place as using the pandemic as an excuse. Like, in these unprecedented times, we need to reevaluate how we perform mathematics in schools so that children no longer have to show their work, because showing work is racist. And you would think I'm making that up. I'm not. I have a video on that one where everything was predicated on, because of the pandemic, we need to start reevaluating. Or the pandemic is showing how many disparate outcomes there are for this, that, and the other. Therefore, here's this idea that's been floating out there for the last 30 years that now we have a chance to sell people on it. So when someone says, because of the pandemic, this has shown us this, that, yeah, no, the pandemic's shown us a lot of things. It's shown us a lot of things. But I get twitchy when someone starts leveraging a fearful event to try to push through ideas that are not new, not innovative, and certainly haven't proven to be beneficial in the long run. And this is one of them. If you can't tell, I'm already coming at this as a skeptic. But then I think I already kind of showed that. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure. I didn't lose you or something.
No. I was just thinking about what you were saying, and I agree that it reminds me of National Socialism again. Like, out of a strange situation, ultimate power was kind of taken.
Yeah, when you have a population that is either in desperate straits or is fearful collectively because of a common shared stress or trauma or something, you can weasel in a lot of things on the promise that this will solve something. This will make your life better. So, yeah, I had something else I was going to say, but it escaped me, so let's just go.
Or isn't it rather that we need to shift as urgently as possible, if we even can manage to do it, from competition to cooperation?
Oh, see, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, cooperation. Why wouldn't you want to cooperate with people? Just cooperation. You know, it's just giving up your own personal thoughts or ideals or capacities and getting along with people. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
From extraction, wealth, and growth to sustainability and needs. So I think that we do need a new Gemeinwesen.
Obviously so. You're standing on a stage selling us on communism. Not a real long trip on that one.
And we need a social order that embodies and reflects it. We need a social order that embodies and reflects it. So
it reflects what? Gemeinwesen? What does that word mean again? Because I did take 3 years of German in high school, but I've forgotten quite a lot of it. Okay. Gemeinwesen, community polity. That's all that means.
Wow. I was gonna say something. Oh yeah. The strange thing is, he seems to be talking about like fundamental and core values this entire time, and very little about actual economics.
Except for exchange. He talked about like the evils of exchanging money for services or something, or at least seemed to be implying that or something. That, you know, the family dynamic where there's no exchange of money, that's the ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
which is rare as well. I mean, there's gotta be some, I mean, on different levels, but there's still exchanges even then.
Yeah. Thank you, Scanner Daffley. I would like to see his net worth. That would be something, wouldn't it? What does he do for a living? Does he take money for his services? Does he pay for things himself? Where did he get that suit? Where did he get those glasses? I mean, I assume he made them himself.
Excuse me.
Now, I'm not here to make a sales pitch.
But yes, you are. Yes, you are. Come on, no, you did not just say that.
That's like the number one identifier for a salesman is them telling you that they're not trying to make a sale.
Thank you, Diesel Dave. I live about 60 miles from Springfield. Oh, do you? Is that where this is? I mean, there are a lot of Springfields in the world. The Simpsons taught us that. So, but or maybe this is the university thereof. Yeah, I don't know who this guy is. I fear he might be a professor of something, but I don't know who he is explicitly.
You need a social order that embodies and reflects it. So now I'm not here to make a sales pitch for communism. Talk about a contradiction in terms, right?
At least he acknowledged that.
I'll give you that. The sales pitch for communism, contradiction in terms. Okay, yeah, but except that he's being completely disingenuous there. But anyway.
But what I do want is I want to help us see love as something bigger than the private property of a romantic relationship. I want to help us understand the social and the political dimensions of this great power called love.
Are you a high priest of something then? I mean, admittedly, socialism or communism is quasi a state religion after a fashion, just without the magisteria. But so you're a hippie. You're a glorified hippie. You want to spread love.
Wait, actually, hold on. Did you recently watch the Boomer video that I posted?
Yes.
This guy seems like a part of that new communalism movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a throwback to the free love of the 70s and everything.
Yeah, where they actually went out of the cities
and built communes.
Yeah, and built communes, but they were so still attached to capitalism. And actually, it's funny because they were using the infrastructure, the roads that capitalism had built to get off of the actual to like explore the country and build these communes, which is just ironic.
Thank you again, Diesel Dave. Only one University of Illinois, Springfield. Gotcha. Okay. I don't know what all the abbreviations mean, but I'll take your word for it. Yeah, so this guy was at least presenting there. Have you heard of what was it called? It's called like the Black Hammer Project. Have you heard about this?
I have not.
So this was on Twitter yesterday or the day before. It's a group of people, and tell me if you heard this one before. A group of people have gotten together and started a fundraiser and bought up several hundred acres of empty land in Colorado where they are going to build a perfect agrarian communal society away from everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I was reading it yesterday, I was like, Jonestown, Jonestown. Real quick, thank you, Mr. Trickle Trunk. Human nature lesson on vocal priming number 1. Anyone who says, I'm not trying to screw you, unprovoked, is going to try and screw you. Yes. If you have to assure me that you're not here to do something, I become suspect that you are here to do something. Anyway, yeah, so there is maybe that the Black Hammer Project or whatever is not reflective of a larger notion, but I don't know. I was like, this is not a new idea.
The idea of I had a long conversation about this with my wife. Like, she really believes in I don't want to say communalism, but she believes in communities and groups and stuff. Even though she's a part of a few of them online and stuff, and book clubs, stuff like that. Nothing where you live in the same house with like 50 people, but. And I personally am very, 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 what do you call it? Individualist, kind of a victim of the country we live in. Everyone is very individualistic, and I like it a lot. I like to be independent, But she makes a strong argument that I can't remember her argument, but she's been trying to get me to see like the benefits of communalism in a certain sense, and I've been trying to, and I hate putting groups down just because they are trying to come up with this system within the system, like I mentioned earlier, with communities. And if it works, it works. And I'm sure it does work for some people or some groups. And you don't really even hear about those groups. But there are so many bad examples that whenever you think cult, community group, or whatever it is, you just immediately start to, as an individualist American, you just start to be like, oh, get that away from me.
Well, I mean, but it's not that I don't believe in community or that people helping one another is, or working together is a bad thing or something, or an impossibility. Christopher Hitchens makes this great comment talking about in his book, God is Not Great, where do you really think that everyone could have crossed the desert without knowing that murder and theft and adultery and all these things were bad before the Ten Commandments showed up? There is something inherently instinctual about having to work together, even if it's only for the most pragmatic needs one to another.
Yeah.
So yeah, but there comes a time where it's like someone's like, I want to start my own community under my philosophy of how the world works. And so there's community for mutual benefit, and then there's community for control, and that's,
I agree. And then it starts to take I think when identity is involved, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yes, and we have a lot of problems with identitarianism these days. Real quick, thank you, John Miller. Where in Colorado, just so I can avoid it like the plague? It's somewhere in the mountains. Like maybe they say specifically on their fundraiser, I don't remember, but they said they were 10,000 feet. They're at a 10,000 feet altitude in the mountains, and they have a river and 2 lakes or something, and apparently not realizing that water rights are different than land rights in Colorado, and saying that they were going to have, look at all this rich soil, except it all looked like sand and clay. So I don't know what they're planning, but it doesn't look healthy. Thank you, Mr. Trickle Trunk again. Also, this won't hurt a bit comes to mind. Yeah, as they bring out a big square needle at you, right? Thank you again, Mr. D. Stave. Reminds me of that town in Utah. Oh, the FLDS town, I think it is. I forget what it's called, where they built up a town just on the basis of the splinter sect of the Latter-day Saints. If that's what you're talking about, I don't know for sure. I mean, there's a lot of interesting quote unquote towns across the country. And thank you, Texas Attorney General, Secret Agent. I don't think the Black Hammer Group bought the land. It appears they might be squatting and they don't have the water rights. Well, the water rights, I'm almost certain from what people have told me, they don't have. That's a whole other kind of process you have to go through. They said they had purchased 200 acres of land. I don't know if that's true. That's just on their website and their fundraiser. So for all I know, they're making it up. But of course, it sounds like they're making it up as they go along. All right. So anyway, he's not trying to sell us on this. And then?
When you go out into the world and you look for someone to fall in love with, you've gone in search of someone with whom to make common cause.
You're stalking. Oh, wait. No, sorry. That's not what that is.
For something hopeful on the horizon.
Yes.
And if you haven't found that person, or if you haven't found those persons yet, I hope that you do.
Well, thank you. I've been working on that my entire adult life. Oh, I'm so lonely. Oh, communism, make me whole.
But it doesn't only happen there. Also in the streets, whenever people gather to rise up against racial profiling, police brutality, racism, sexism, and growing global inequality, there too people gather in search of others with whom to make common cause for something hopeful on the horizon.
Yes, all of us instinctually want to be the hero, and all of us are yearning to be part of something larger than ourselves because we want to feel like we've left a mark on the world and everything else. And that is not in and of itself a bad thing. The problem is when there are larger entities at work who will try to leverage that necessity and need in us towards their own ends and use it, let's just say, disingenuously. That is the thing you got to be watching out for. this is a good cause because I say it is. Now, in order to support our good cause, we need to go break that window. And it's like I say, it all depends on how these things are executed. The notion, road to hell's paved in good intentions. It's great. It's great to have a thought that we are going to cure the world of this ill. How do you go about it? Who's telling you how to think about things? And on and on. And just the last year of protests, several of which were not protests, were called protests, even as buildings were burning down. I get wary of somebody giving me the speech about the necessity of protest. Like, yes, there is a necessity of protest, but the way that words and meanings keep being transmogrified these last couple of years always sets my hackles up just a little bit as to what they're actually talking about. I don't know if that happens for you, but it definitely happens for me now.
Yeah. In the sense of, can you give me an example?
The media, and there's countless examples of this, the media calling what is no doubt a riot, a violent protest, or protesters were had tear gas fired at them by police last night, and this sort of, we're going to soften the terms we use to describe reality because we don't want to offend people.
Oh, I see.
Because to call this event a riot and not call this event a riot, because in this event it was people turning cars over because a sports team won and they're mostly white, but calling this a riot over here where people are burning down buildings and turning cars over, well, if we call these this group of people or this event a riot, we're being racist.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're both riots, and no one in their right mind would call you wrong for calling them riots. But now, because riot or rioter or criminal or anything else, even though it's an act of crime taking place, we can't say that because that would be politically incorrect.
Right.
So especially when I'm listening to somebody who tells me I'm not here to sell you something, but then starts talking about terms that in the last year especially have been, like I say, when someone says equity, it sounds fine if you look at the actual definition. But then, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is exactly that, right? Because it's called that. So I always get a little wary when some terms are thrown around so loosely. But anyway, that's just my own neuroses.
I can agree. The only time that I see where that's fit is if you're looking at a situation like where the media is, like Reuters is a great example. Their policy is that they don't use loaded words or to the best of their ability.
Right.
Just so they don't create a bias. But
Right.
if you're like Fox News or CNN or something where you're trying to create a new narrative versus stay away from creating a new narrative, yeah, I agree with you completely.
Well, the most recent example I saw was, it was either Portland or Seattle. I forget which one it is. But anyway, their local government, their town hall, their city council or whatever, they said, in official documentation and discussion, we shall no longer use the phrase criminal justice system because there is no justice in the system. It shall now be the criminal legal system.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, because I've heard that being pushed a lot. And I actually heard it being pushed on TEDx long before I heard about this whole city thing. So that's the whole, TEDx can sometimes be the canary in the coal mine. The criminal legal system. Whenever I hear it said by activists, criminal becomes an adjective to describe the legal system, rather than the subject of the system. So that was like, oh, geez. Thank you, Mr. Tickleton. Again, believe him, Scribe. It's just the tip. Yeah. Just the tip. All right. We only got another minute and a half out of this. Okay.
So I think that when we take a look and see what type of active relationships are motivated, are mobilized by love, we're just going to have to reconcile ourselves with at least one communist aspiration in all of us. Now,
stalking is motivated by love. Sometimes murder is motivated by love. Is love just? I know. I'm being a smartass. I can't help myself. I'm just saying. People start talking about end-all, be-all solutions to things.
Communist aspiration in all of us.
Yes.
Now, here I know someone will say, but Richard,
Yes.
well, you've made some points, but why do you have to use that terrible word, that dirty word, that vilified, awful word, communism?
I guess I am asking myself that, because if you're talking about love as our guiding light here, what does economy, government, nation states have to do with just association one to another? Like, why even bring it up? Can love not exist under capitalism?
Yeah, I still don't understand how he tied love and communism together so effortlessly.
If he's just talking about community, and like I said before, having an understanding of the necessity of mutual benefit person to person, you could call that a kind of love, I suppose, or at least an acknowledgement of each other's humanity, or that, no man is an island, etc. How many other, catchphrases I could come up with. But that doesn't seem like what you're talking about, because if love fuels communism, why did it kill so many people? Why did Stalin divvy people up on their worth? And until you can answer that one for me, you're not selling me.
Well, if a word or an idea offer us something useful, offer us something good, maybe even something necessary, we don't abandon it just because it's been misunderstood, and especially not when it's been deliberately misunderstood for political reasons.
So the bad rap that communism has is not a result of historical outcomes. It's because of a conspiracy to shame it. Is that it? Don't believe your lying eyes kind of thing. Okay, that's one kind of sales pitch.
And more than that, if we don't understand love as a real refuge from, as a living alternative to a world and a life ruled by money, then we misunderstand love, and we cannot afford to do that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm circling word salad. I didn't before, but I'm going to do it now. A word salad is now on the board, guys, because that last part, I have but one thing to say, and it is this. All right, well, guys, let me bring up the bingo card here, and we can go over it. Before we go over the bingo card, any closing thoughts, at least on the presentation there for me?
For me? Yeah. Honestly, I don't have any strong opinions because no strong argument was made, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It was all over the place and didn't really seem to settle on an actual argument, or at least he did not successfully tie the emotion of love to the system of communism, I guess.
Yeah, I don't even understand the message, really. I mean, yeah. I don't understand the message. I do get that, yeah, there's, like, we should be more loving in a communal sense, but I mean, you didn't even have to bring up communism to say that.
Yeah.
In fact, it'd probably be more effective had you not.
Yeah. I was thinking, it's just like that is the softest of the soft sells for communism that I've ever heard. Because, yeah, anyway. Okay, let's go on to the bingo card. Let's go over it one more time, and then we'll go to the chat for any argumentation or pitches for other squares. Marginalization. You could make the argument that when he brought up communities of color and impoverished communities, that he was talking about marginalization and the differences in outcomes. Does that sound reasonable?
For me, I'm somebody that believes in inequality, or I mean, I don't believe in it, but I believe that it exists.
Yes. Well, yeah.
So I don't know.
Okay.
That's up for debate.
All right. I'll set that one and let the chat talk about that one. Collectivize his own demographic. Well, he never talked about himself like as a white man or something like that. So it's difficult for him for us to say that he collectivizes his own demographic. So I'll leave that one aside for the moment. Leaves out vital context. Yeah. How does communism and love somehow intertwine with each other? Maybe there's an argument, but he never made it.
It wasn't clear, that's for sure.
At the very least, yeah. So let me update that. Okay, we are one square away from a bingo, guys. Feminism. Again, he never brought up any gender. Now, patriarchy is a whole separate thing. We talked about that. But feminism, he never talked about male and female sort of battles or anything. The closest he came to was your partner, but that never became a gendered thing. So can't really say feminism. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. Did he bring up? No, I know.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah, not that I can think of. Anecdote that probably never happened. He never really gave us an anecdote. I mean, maybe the loosest form of anecdote, but it was all hypothetical. And just talking about his family, it was so abstract. It's not something like, oh, my 5-year-old walked in the other day and asked me, Mom, how is it that Trump still resonates in people's minds after the impeachment? Something like that. It's like, no, that didn't happen. So I can't think of one. Diversity and inclusion. All right, here's the big one. And when it comes down to the last square before a bingo, I either need an explicit use of the concept or a really good argument. And I cannot recall him ever saying the words diversity and inclusion specifically. Now, inclusion you could make an argument for, but I'll leave that to the chat because I could easily make the argument, but I want some back and forth. I want to hear what you guys have to say. So we'll leave that there for a second. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. I didn't hear anything where he's trying to sell a book title or anything, so I can't recall there's anything new there. Plays victim. Again, he never really talked about himself directly, and I didn't get a sense that he was playing the victim per se. If he thinks of himself as an avatar of the everyman and he's a victim of capitalism or something, maybe, but I didn't really hear that from him either. Benevolent condescension. I'm not here to sell you something. I can't help myself. And just the overall, communism is sort of the end all be all, and it's all about love, and don't think too hard about why I'm not making the connection between the two. So for me, at least.
Bingo. What? Of course.
We have our first bingo.
All right.
Bingo. All right. So bingo number one.
What happens when you get a bingo?
That happens.
Oh, cool.
I play the little thing we celebrate.
Right on.
If we ever fill out the card completely, I've got a whole special video set up for that. But so far we haven't. Oh yeah. I'll show it to you after we're done. I don't want to ruin it for anybody who's never seen it before, because I've only played it like twice, I think, and that was on a different show somewhere. I'm saving it for a special occasion. Let's see, wage gap. Like I say, classically, the wage gap square is saved for where someone says, women make 75 cents on the dollar or something like that. He talked about economies. He talked about disparate sort of money outcomes and things, but I don't know. Does that count as wage gap specifically?
I think he did.
The rich and the poor.
He didn't necessarily say wage gap, but he did say that
the haves and have-nots.
Something. The one statement I agree with that he made the entire thing is that certain demographics are definitely because of the system not as affluent.
All right,
but I don't know if that counts.
No, it does. I mean, it depends on the content of the presentation. I mean, whether or not whatever the impetus is, I agree with it, or it's true or not, whatever. As long as they bring it up in some way, shape, or form, it can count. So that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So wage gap. Now, privilege. You had an argument for privilege. Was it bolstered any further by the end of the presentation than it was at the time that you first pitched it? Do you think?
What was that one? Sorry.
Privilege.
Oh, I didn't get any glaring examples, I guess.
Yeah, you made some observations that if this is how he sees families, etc., then maybe he's coming from a place where he didn't have to work and so on. But that is, I'll leave that one to the chat. If you guys can come up with a good argument for that one. Self-vilification or wretchedness. At no point did this guy undercut himself at all. Or like, it's like, say, I'm a terrible, my toxic masculinity makes me blah, blah. No, he didn't go to that. Equity. Now, equity as a concept, yeah, he was pushing for it, obviously, because in the modern parlance, equity means equality of outcome, and communism purportedly is meaning to achieve that. So I could make the argument that the entire presentation qualifies for the equity square just because of the nature of the subject matter. And so I will, because this is my show, and I have that power. I have the power. I don't even have a gray skull behind me. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. I mean, now here's my pitch. He could have just talked about, if he's talking about exchange and economy and currency and everything else, was it necessary to bring up communities of color when we're just talking about disparate economic situations?
So was it necessary that he brings up people of color and?
Well, when making the argument that communism and disparate economical outcomes are a problem, was it necessary for him to bring that up? Was there a reason?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say so, and in fact, I would have leaned harder on that because instead, see, I was actually having a conversation about something last night with a friend of mine, saying like there's certain types of arguments that are more compelling than others for certain types of people. Like one, if you're trying to push an ideology, rather than talking about your own ideology, pick apart the opposition's ideology. Mm-hmm. And then there's the opposite type of people that would rather talk about the glory of their ideology. Yes. And in my eyes, that's kind of the disgusting kind that I immediately turn away from. And that it seems like that's what this guy was doing versus, something like if I were to make the same argument as him, I would lean into how terribly certain policies within current economic systems really create awful situations for certain demographics of people. Because, yeah, on paper, they are fair, but the people that, like you said, the language is fair, but the people that actually control this language and how it's interpreted are not. So,
see now, and after watching a lot of these things and reading a lot of current events and everything else, I would argue that the reflex to conjoin the notion of, for lack of a better phrase, lower class economic brackets, let's say, with race is a disservice in associating that someone who's not white should also be considered underadvantaged reflexively.
Right.
That's so I've seen this happen tons of times where they will say communities of color and the poor, something like that, as though these two demographics are right side by side, and they should not be entwined. And so whenever I hear something like that, it makes me go, wait a second, because is that how I'm
putting them in line as if like that's something that they're on a similar tier,
right? Yeah, and that's where I want to say. I often call it like the God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis. There's a disparity between these two groups, and because the groups are the two demographics, and because we're talking about genders, therefore sexism, or races, therefore racism, and things like that. And that is always a hazy place for me to want to sit on, because it's often not that. If you like the wage gap, for example, there's been a dozen zillion studies on this, where looking at the overall earnings of the two genders in America, women make 75% on the dollar. Yeah, they earn that much, but if you actually look at what is accounting for that difference, it's not sexism. It's job choice, it's education, it's a whole how many hours work, on and on and on. There's all these other things to control for. When you finally get down to the nitty gritty, there's a space that cannot be explained explicitly of something like 1 to 3%, if that. So when I hear someone conjoin two very different concepts together like that and want them to be associated together, then I have a big question mark in my head. So that's where I'm coming from on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can agree with that for sure.
All right, so moving on to white supremacy. Now, again, in the present, and it comes back to that very thing. If in the presentation he's saying that we should think of communities of color as being conjoined with or associated with the lower class, then I would say by implication, he is promoting the idea of white supremacy.
What was the statement he made?
Well, when he put together communities of color and impoverished communities.
Uh-huh.
And so by making that association,
he's one up on them.
Yeah, but that being white means you're associated with not poverty.
Right.
So, like I say, now, since this isn't a square that will make a bingo, I will circle it for the abstraction, even though I never said the phrase.
That's a nice observation, I would say, definitely.
All right, so good at that one. So that's where we'll end this as far as my review. So chat, now it's your time. If you have arguments for squares not yet circled, put them in the chat now. We'll go for, can you go for another 15 minutes?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm just hanging out.
Okay, well, we'll go for at least another 15 minutes or so before we'll wrap things up. So if you have arguments for squares not yet circled, put them in the chat now. Be sure to tag me with my @Scribe light in there so I can see it more clearly on the chat, because it pops up with a little highlighted thing. While we're waiting for any arguments to come up, do you have anything you'd like to shill? Anything you'd like to promote while you're here?
Who, me?
Well, I don't know who else I'd be talking to.
I feel like I don't know. I'm like partially reading the chat, so I feel like there's more people in here than there is.
Well, there's currently 61 people watching, and at least by the time this goes out into the world, my video averages anywhere from 350 to 700 views by the time it kind of tops out. I'm not the biggest channel in the world, but I'll tell you what, the fact that I have more subscribers to my channel than everyone that ever existed in my schooling, school to school, still impresses the hell out of me. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's see. Is there anything I would like to promote? I did release a video I'm really proud of, like last week, which is the video about the boomers.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody really wants to check that out, I would recommend it. Definitely. I spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
And just go ahead and give that a like and a watch if you'd like.
Yeah. Link to Inhuman Forms channel is in the description, as well as his Twitter. Excuse me. I cannot more highly recommend his content, because in the Disciples of Jim Can't Swim, Formy here is up there with Matt Orchard as far as just analysis and quality and editing and the whole 9 yards. And the one I mean, if I have a favorite, and I kind of do, it was the one on Dick Fold and what happened with Lehman Brothers and that whole thing. I was just morbidly fascinated with all the goings on that led to the financial crisis.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting.
And your piece on that was a really good. I've watched a lot of things from Frontline and other production companies and things going over the ins and outs of it all, but specifically looking at Dick Fold and his observable psychology and everything else about what happened there was a really good supplement to all that. So everybody, if you haven't checked it out, be sure to. He's got stuff on there about serial killers too, if you like that kind of thing. But he's not just Jim Can't Swim, if you can believe it.
I've kind of left that behind a little bit because I was getting so many comparisons, and it really was it was feeling empty to me that there was like, that I was completely taking somebody's format, even though I'm very grateful for it.
Well, truth be told, this whole TEDx thing was inspired to me by two different people. Sargon of Akkad did a couple of these, but specifically a YouTuber. And truth be told, I don't know if he still makes videos at this point. But anyway, Skeptor, if you can find, well, Skeptor and Hagbard Celine. Skeptor specifically for leading me on to the discovery of TEDx, because he did a brief series called TEDx Horror Show way back when. And I came across these. I had no idea much about TED, and I definitely did not know about TEDx at that time. But his taking a look at those inspired me. And Hagbard Celine did several commentary things on presentations by academics and professionals that I really enjoyed. And so I will not deny cribbing the inspiration from them, but hopefully I've created something unto itself at this point. Let's see real quick. Dr. Keeve says, let me get this up on the chat, because I can do this now. I can pull up people's chats on here. Dr. Keeve asked, in human form, do you have a Streamlabs?
I'm not sure what that is, actually.
So Streamlabs is kind of like a live Patreon.
Oh,
Let's say it is a place where people can just send you donations, and usually you can sometimes set that up to be conjoined with your live stream so that they show up on the stream and that kind of thing. So if you ever watch somebody on Twitch and you see that their donations pop up, it's kind of like that. But you can also receive Streamlab donations while you're online or just in general. So it's that kind of thing. So obviously you don't have one, but
I don't have one, but actually I'm going to look into it today after, just because it sounds interesting. And I want to also make a shout out to Zachary Cross on here. He's my best friend. So I saw him in the chat a second ago.
Hi, Zach. Let's see. Mr. Tickle Trunk, didn't he argue that we're all the victims of capitalism? A stretch, but maybe. See, now, and that's what I was saying, is like, does he consider himself a victim of capitalism? And so is he playing the victim?
Oh, I'm sure he does.
But it always comes down to what was in the content of the presentation. The boundaries of the bingo card are the presentation itself. Did I ever get a sense that he was playing the victim or playing that up? He was talking in abstractions. But
he didn't really. I'll give him credit. I don't think he was. I think he was more so thinking like, hey, I've got this idea that I got from an older idea. But I never got the idea that he was, blaming capitalism, because you're right. He was wearing a suit that was likely a factory made.
Yeah, and the glasses, I'm sure he put together by himself in a garage somewhere. Some Namnyel Nation, what happened to Formy's argument that the speaker came from a privileged background by making assumptions that people don't work and bring the money home for the family, Scribe Light? Okay, again, that's why I wanted to ask him and then pass it on to you guys. Did that come across strongly enough over the course of the presentation? Or did that concept come across? Well, you know what? He did. You know what? When he was talking about medical outcomes, right, for those that had money and those that didn't, in relation to everything else, I just talked myself into it. And so as a result of that,
ooh, that's a bingo,
right?
Yeah,
we have a double bingo. Double bingo. Oh my gosh. All right. It's going to, the hill is going to be steeper to climb now, guys, for arguments for squares to be circled, because we're running out of room where there's a whole lot to be said. Let's see who else said stuff about things and stuff. Dr. Keefe says, Scribe Light, Carolyn Borisenko might have been inspired by you. I've seen her on Twitter. I don't know anything about her. I've seen a lot of people retweet her and things like that. And I remember somebody recommended to me that I touch base with her on something, but I don't remember why. And I'm always kind of nervous approaching complete strangers on, I don't know why I am, but I am sometimes. So I'd have to know more about what you mean, I guess. Because I don't think I've inspired anybody, really. Of course, that's just my lack of self-confidence talking. Mike R. Scribe, isn't communism by nature a form of inclusion? That is also another argument. I will leave it to the much more learned guest to tell me. Communism,
I'm sorry, one more time. What was the question?
Okay, so is communism inherently a form of inclusion?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I'm pulling up a better. I'm pulling up a definition of inclusion just to make sure I don't.
Well, here's my argument in the dissent, in that communism inherently requires conformity, and so outside ideas or people who do not get along to go along do not belong. It like I say, it's like the DPRK. The word sounds inclusive, but in practice, is it? So
okay. I would say probably, I mean, in terms of providing equal access, in theory, yes, it is.
Okay.
Or it's supposed to be, I should say. But did communism end up being that way? I don't believe so, because I think even currently in China, for instance, the technocracy ends up taking advantage of the working class.
Okay.
So
here's the only thing that I have to ask, though. Our interpretation is separate from the content of the presentation insofar as what was being promoted. Because I've watched lots of TEDx's where they talk about things being inclusive or diverse where they're inherently not, but they did use the term. So just to contradict myself here, in that, no, I don't think communism is inherently diverse and inclusive. However, was that the intention of the speaker in the presentation?
I would say so.
I have a hard time not saying otherwise, and so consequently,
bingo. What? Of course.
We have a third bingo, triple bingo. Oh my gosh, this doesn't happen very often.
Really?
You're like a lucky rabbit's foot or something.
Oh, right on. Well, we're going for 5 for 5 then.
Yeah.
Or was it? There's 5. Yeah.
Let's see. All right. So, guys, we're coming up on the end here. If you've got, again, at this point, you're going to have to come up with some really good arguments for anything else. And there are no like one square, well, marginalization. That's really the only one left. And as it is, like I say, last square before another bingo, a quadruple bingo, it'd have to be a really, really good argument, because if you never said the words or anything else, you could argue things were implied by talking about communities of color again, but we kind of already leaned on that quite a bit. So I'll give another minute or two, but then I think we're going to wrap it here. And 3 is nothing to sneeze at. Let's be honest here. You guys have seen this show before. Coming up on 3 is not an often occurrence. Let's see. Lexi Mad says, "Who thought we'd get 3 out of this one? Christ on a bike." I know. Given the fact, like I said, when the subject matter was like, oh, it isn't to be talking about economic systems and things and not the usual rhetoric. No, never mind. There are some commonalities amongst all TEDx talks, or just presentations in general. Let's see, Mr. Tickle
Love
Trump.
is marginalized in capitalism. I like that.
Oh,
that's a pretty strong argument.
Who was that? Okay, credit where credit's due. No one nowhere. Love is marginalized in capitalism. Oh, how can I say no to that? Given the crux of his entire argument, right?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. You know
that's
what?
the implication.
Yeah, you know what? No one, nowhere. You might not be a salesman, but you sure sold me.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
Quadruple bingo.
Wow.
Yeah, that is even more of a rarity. But guys, with that, because I got other things I got to get taken care of today, and I've kept our guest long enough, I think. We're going to wrap it up there. So hope you guys all enjoyed it. For me, thank you so much for joining me for this one.
Thanks for having me.
You're ridiculously helpful in making this much more interesting than I would have been all by myself.
Oh, thanks.
And everyone, again, if you haven't already checked it out, check out Inhuman Forms channel. Links in the description, as well as his Twitter. Follow him there as well. Check out his content. I really enjoy it. The serial killer stuff, the societal stuff. I'm being way too summary in how I'm describing these things, but you'll see for yourself when you go over there. If you, I know I'm just trying to get away from it, but it is the first selling point. If you enjoy Jim Can't Swim type things, start from the beginning of his channel and work your way to current. You'll grow as a person. Put it that way.
Thanks.
So everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so moderators. Thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone is so well behaved. You have very little to do. Everyone who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to hear more from me or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find the two of us tonight on this channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for The Lords of the Night, where we will talk about the news of the day, news stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments, as well as a very cute theme that I came up with for the day. You'll see when you see it. Everyone, again, thank you for joining me. Hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.